Hello everyone and welcome to the 8th episode in my Materialize CSS mini-series. Now in this video we are going to be going over the concept of cards using Materialize. And there are quite a few different types of cards, or at least different types of features that you can add to the basic cards. And we will be going over most of them. I am omitting a few, and honestly, I haven't used them that much, but if you still want to look into them, the ones that I omit, and I will tell you which ones I'm leaving out, you can come here to the documentation and check it out for yourself. So we are going to go ahead and just follow this agenda, and we will be starting with a quick recap. So I'm going to open up our index.html and kind of push our agenda down here. And then I'm going to click on the HTML here and hit the Go Live button to start up our web server. Once we have that working, we can basically go over what we wrote in the previous episode. So in the previous episode, we basically added the buttons here, and there are quite a few button kind of button customizations that you can make. And of course you have the standard button with the animation by using the button small class, although that's not a small button. And I think I know, yeah, that's because I set the width and height. But either way, so you can set the button small class, and in fact I'm going to get rid of this custom styling here just so we can see what that normally looks like. It looks like that. And then of course to make it animated I gave it a waves effect, waves light. And same thing with this floating button, it also has a little animation and it has a plus. And then we have just the standard teal button, and then there's a flat button here. And the flat button does not have an animation, but actually if I wanted to give it a waves effect and then maybe waves dark, is one thing we could add, and that kind of is a cool little waves effect too. And there's waves to teal. And I'm actually not sure if there is like waves green, but oh, there is. Okay, so yeah, actually that is an effect. I'm pretty sure it's just about every color that Materialize offers. You could make it. Okay, apparently not. I spoke a little bit too soon. I'm actually not sure which colors are supported, so it would be, yeah, I guess purple supported. Green is definitely supported. I don't know about blue. No, blue apparently just isn't. Maybe red is, I'm sure. Yeah, so most of the basic colors are supported. Purple, green, red, teal. And then of course you can just have a light and dark effect. So you can play around with that to see what you like. But I actually didn't know you could do custom colors, which is pretty cool. So I learned something new here. I just had a hunch since teal worked. I tried the other colors. So that's pretty much what we wrote in the previous episode. And of course, to get this floating button, we add the button floating. To get the flat button, we give it a button flat. And that's pretty much all that we have to add. And Materialize stylizes the button for us for the most part. And as you saw, we can of course override that and change the sizing and all that if we want to. And then if I, for example, had this href go to google.com, or let's just go to GitHub actually. So it's going to GitHub here. It's this flat button. So if I click on this, it'll take us to GitHub, which I haven't seen their homepage in a while. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So that's how we can get basically links, because these aren't really buttons. Like normally in HTML you use a button element, but you know, it's a link that goes somewhere that looks like a button basically and has an animation, which is pretty cool. So that was what we did in the previous episode. I'm going to go ahead and remove the buttons just for now, and we're going to remove the hello world with the icon just because it can be a little bit confusing. Of course, I'm going to leave the nav bar here because it's not intrusive. It's just like part of a standard website. And we will get into cards. Now, cards are generally, you know, used. I personally use them to make my content stand out. And of course, I will use my website as an example. As you can see right here, the companies I work for and my projects are kind of these cards, and when you hover over them, I can click on them. Now, actually, I think I originally started off by using a Materialize card, but I actually ended up making my own class or my own stylings to do this. But for example, when I click on this, if you see this card here, if I inspect this here, and let me kind of increase the size of the inspector here, size that down. So we have right here, Okay. Yes. Okay, so actually, never mind. I think for the most part, I think that I actually used my own stylings for these cards. Although there are some materialized elements here, like Z depth is another materialized class that you that I haven't covered yet. Although I could have sworn that I was using cards from Materialize, but honestly, I think at some point I was using them, but then I decided to refactor into my own, um, I guess, into my own implementation of these cards, which I'm not completely sure why uh, still, but yeah, I guess I am using my own cards. But for the most part, these cards are styled in a very similar way to the cards here in Materialize. And I actually think it's because I wanted to give them a custom shadow. I think that's why I might have customized them, but that's besides the point. So this is basically cards is basically used to make your content stand out or to just create separate kind of sections or groupings of your content. So to actually create one, let's go ahead and create a row as it says here. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and literally kind of copy and paste this because there's no point in writing all this out. Although, especially if you are a beginner, one kind of guiding principle in code, and I've talked about this in a previous kind of tech and career video that I made. Copying code is completely okay, especially when you're learning. On a test, it's a little bit more muddy, but on a project, copying code, from the internet, parts of to like kind of taking different pieces of code and combining them is generally okay, and it's always okay when you're on a job, unless like you're stealing someone else's personal code. It's always fine to copy, especially if this is an example here. But to get better memory retention, you might want to manually write it out. And this is what I did as a beginner. I would just come here and kind of just mindlessly copy. And believe it or not, that actually makes it easier to remember than just Control C and Control V. Because when you do Control C, Control V, you don't like memory or you don't remember all of it. So, sometimes it is good to kind of write it out. Um, so at least understand what you're kind of copying at the very least. So let's go ahead and go through this. We have a row here, which is it's part of Materialize, and I covered this in the grid video, the Materialize grid video. And then we have a column here, which is also part of the grid video. And this is actually where the card takes place. It's a card, and that's how we know. We give it a class of card. And then blue-gray is the background. So as you can see here, we give it darken 1. So this is just a blue-gray darken 1 is the color of the background. And of course, we can make it darker by darken 2, darken 3. So that's just coloring. And then we have the card content in here with some white text. And then, of course, this is where we're putting our text. And then after the div with the text in it, we can give it another div with the card action. And these are the links here at the bottom. And of course, if we remove the action, naturally, this is just a simple card. And it's literally a card on your website. And that's like, you can use this as is and pretty much just put whatever you want in between. Like we can put like a, let's see here, put an H1 hello world, and then put a P, this is my card, and then, that's a little bit big, but, something like that. And of course, like naturally, I'm just like thinking, if I was actually doing this, of course, I would want to move the margin on the hello world, probably just the margin top. And then, yeah, we have a cool little card here. So, you can customize what goes inside it, of course. You can add buttons. And then if you add that card action kind of little div here, you can add the links on the bottom. And then moving on to image cards, we can, as stated here, we can actually, inside our card, we can add another div. Because remember, we have our card content here, we have our card actions. We can add a third div on top, and that will add an image kind of heading the card. So if I literally paste that in right here. So we have the card, and then we have the card image, then the card content, and I save. If you'll look here, it's actually broken, and that's because this is not my website. So let me just go ahead and copy image address. So I can right click and hit copy image address, and I can paste it in here, for example. And now we have the kind of card right here, which this doesn't look the greatest with this color on the card, but this is how we create an image. Basically, we just add it inside a div here, and then we have the card image class, and then we actually put the image inside, and then we have a span to actually give it its kind of caption. If we don't need it, then we can just remove it. Right here, we can just remove it if we don't need the caption, and it disappears like that. So now it's just an image with our card. So that was the gist of adding images. There are some other features like fab buttons, or just fabs. It stands for floating action button basically, and you can click on it and make it do something. But the gist of how you add it is, again, you come down here and you have to add it as the bottom of the card image, because the fab is meant to go in between the image and the card content. So it'll be the bottommost element, and you have to give it the class of halfway dash fab, and that will kind of position it halfway down. And then of course you need the button floating, and the you need the animations if you want it. So let's go ahead and add that. So without looking at the documentation, if we can, let's go ahead and add an href to hash, which goes nowhere, and then give it a class. So we want to give it a button floating, of course, and then we want to make it a waves effect, waves dash light, and then I think we have to add the halfway dash fab, and just doing that will put it there. Let's make it a little bit larger because it looks a little small. So button dash large, and that will make it larger, just like that. And of course, we want to give it a red background maybe, because I think it looks better that way, and Materialize does too. And then of course we can put in kind of an icon tag like that, and then we can put add, which will, if it's not add, I'm not sure what it's called. Oh yeah, I forgot to give it the Materialize icons class. Don't forget that. Little mistakes here and there. That always happens. So now we have our little fab here in our actual website. And of course, if we gave this an href, again, let's just make it go to, Materialize CSS. So if I go ahead and right click and hit open link in new tab, or if I click on it like that, it will take me to the Materialize website. So that's pretty cool. And then there are two more topics that I wanted to cover. This video hopefully won't run too long, but we can add a card reveal, which is basically when you click on the card, it will reveal this text. I actually haven't used this that much, but when I was looking through it, it looks pretty cool. I like the animation and kind of the whole thing. And then of course the image itself is also animated, which is pretty cool. So in order to do that, we simply have to add a card reveal kind of div. And this goes under the card content, and I believe it goes above the card actions if there are any, which in this case there aren't. But let's go ahead and copy this little div here and put it under the card content, and then card reveal. Let's fix the the kind of formatting. So we have the card reveal section here, and now when I click on, or I forgot to add a class here. So here on the card image, we have to give it a activator. We have to give the image a class of activator, which is right here. So let's give it a class of activator. And I believe we actually still need to activate it with the JavaScript itself. So let's find that, unless they don't have it. Huh, that is interesting that they don't actually list it. So I guess they do not talk about the JavaScript. Oh, okay, never mind. I guess there's actually no JavaScript needed. That was my bad. So actually they added the waves effect here. So now, as you can see, if you click on the image, we get this little kind of pop-up coming up. I wasn't sure because usually you have to initialize these things with JavaScript, but I guess Materialize does this on its own. So we just click here and we get our little pop-up. And of course we can change what's inside, like that, save. Now we have whatever we want in here, which is pretty neat. And then the final kind of topic is just tabs and cards. It looks something like this, where you have different sections of the card. And naturally that works somewhat similarly to the extended navbar, which we did not cover because that was kind of a learn on your own thing, but I will quickly go over this in our cards video. So we have under the card content yet another two sections. We have the card tab section, which are the actual tabs, and then the card content again with the different kind of sections to the tabs. So let's go ahead and add that under the card reveal, and that should be fine. Oh, this is tabbed very weirdly, but there we go. It's normal now. So we have basically under the actual main card. So this is the main card, and as you can see, this card is very modular. Like we have a top section, and then there's the main section, and then we just have to add new divs to get these new bottom sections, and then under all of it, or kind of, it's not under, but it's right here, but we could move it at the bottom, which probably makes sense. You can kind of think as each of these divs is kind of like a module. So as you can see, we have our image here, and then that's taking up this div here with the image, and then we have the main card here, which is taking up this div. We have the card tabs, which are taking up these divs, this div, and then the card content, which is taking up these divs here, and then we have the card reveal, which comes up from the bottom when we click on the image, which is pretty neat. And I actually didn't finish writing this card content here, so let's see. You can add tabs by adding the card dash tabs like that. And then I think I messed up the formatting somehow because that is not behaving correctly. I wonder if this is one of the things that we have to use JavaScript for, because the code looks exactly the same here, and we might have to end up using JavaScript. So I'm going to go ahead and run a function called m.autoinit, which let me just make sure, m.autoinit. Yeah, so you can actually run this thing. It allows you to initialize all of Materialize with a single function call, and simply you run this m.autoinit in your JavaScript. I can get it to paste, and then I can basically comment that out, and now I believe, yep, now we have the tab system working, and we still have our side nav working as normal. And this, again, this JavaScript is the whole key to getting the animation, like to getting this functionality working, because this functionality does require JavaScript since we're hiding and showing content. And then, of course, this one does too, since we're, again, hiding and showing our content. So that was pretty much all I had to cover. There is a small utility class that I saw. We can change the kind of size of our cards. So naturally, I actually remember I've done this before. So if we have our card here, we can make it a card large, which will, although I guess that doesn't work, card small. We'll make it small like that, card medium. Although now I'm seeing, yeah, it apparently adding a sizing class might break some of this. So that's, kind of up to you to decide how to go with that, because what I would probably recommend is simply this card resizing to my, oh, interesting. What I would recommend is going basically into the card itself and just editing the style that makes it grow, I guess. Like you'd have to take a look into the styles here a bit. But yeah, so we basically have a S12 M6 situation here where the card will actually just grow based on the column, and then I believe it'll take up all this basic can. So that's the reason why it was kind of sizing weirdly. But you can definitely look into that on your own to figure out how you can best style your cards. And of course, if you want to basically do kind of your own cards, or you can, if you don't like the styling, basically, you can do what I did and just basically design your own cards based on what Materialize gives you, and you can get the best of both worlds. So yeah, that was pretty much all I had to cover in this video. If you want to see more content like this, I highly recommend you check out the playlist, which is linked in the description. And if you just want to see more content in general, I am planning to do more web development series and some Node.js stuff, maybe some new programming languages that I'm learning, possibly game development. I have a bit of a breadth of knowledge that I've been doing over the last couple of years, and I'd love to share it with all of you. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications whenever I post new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.